Hello everyone, welcome back to GSTech Park. So in this episode we'll be discussing about the rapid revision on input tax credit ITC, one amongst the important chapters which we have in uh, GST. And you know that input tax is the one amongst the reason input tax credit, no, it is one amongst the reason that GST came into existence. The earlier tax regimes may know, though to that extent ITC was not available, input tax credit was not available, but here in this case, no, we are getting ITC to some big extent. Okay, yes, so we will discuss now about the input tax credit. Specially directly we are going to talk about section number 16, 17, 18. Actually section number 19, 20, 21 is also about ITC, but it is not there in your syllabus. We will be discussing about section number 16, 17 and 18. 16 is talking about the eligibility to take the ITC, 17 is about apportionment and blocked credit, 18 is about some special conditions and circumstances where you can take ITC and what is the manner of taking ITC with the rules. Now we will discuss section number 16 subsection 1. What section number 16 subsection 1 says, sir? Section number 16 subsection 1 is talking about every registered person shall, subject to such conditions and specifications as may be prescribed, can take the ITC provided they are using the goods or services for their business purpose and they are registered person. So registered person and used for in the course or furtherance of the business. That is about section number 16 subsection 1. They can take the credit if they are registered, and the second one, they are using this for the business purpose. Section number 16 subsection 2 is talking about some of the important conditions. If you remember, section number 16 subsection 2 says that TR, if you remember, TR and TR. So that is about T here and one more is R here. So what is TR, sir? T for tax invoice. You should have the tax invoice or some the possession of the tax invoice or debit note issued by the supplier registered under this act. So remember, when you can take ITC, sir, if you have the tax invoice or debit note or ISD or self invoice. Remember, if you have all these things, then you can take the ITC. Otherwise you cannot take ITC. Otherwise it will be considered as bogus invoice. You have goods you have, but invoice you don't have. The goods is some smuggled goods. They might think that it is smuggled goods. On that you don't get ITC. Tax invoice should be there. With that you should have received the goods. R is about receive the goods. You should have received the goods. Goods should have received, only then you will get the ITC. You have only invoice, sir. In that case, will you get ITC? No, you will not get ITC. The government thinks that it is bogus invoice. For that purpose, you will not get the ITC. And there were some explanation for this clause. You are, in case of bill to ship to model, remember bill to ship to model, you have ordered for the goods, but goods you are directing that person to send it to some other person. This is bill to ship to model. In case of bill to ship to model, it is considered that even though goods are received by your agent or the job worker, still it will be considered as you have received the goods. This is one important point that we had to discuss here. And where the services are provided by the supplier, the person directly to the another person on account of such registered person, then also it will be considered as you have received the services. This is TR. And one more T is subject to the provisions of section number 41. Tax charged in respect of such supply has been actually paid to the government. Who has to pay, sir? Example, I purchase the goods from you, I'll pay the amount to you. You have to pay to the government. If you don't pay to the government, then I will not get it. So remember rule number 37, if I am not wrong. Yes. In that case, we have discussed that. So you have to file the return within September, within 30th of September in the next year. See, example, you have sold me the goods. You have filed GSTR1, but 3B you have not filed. If you don't file 3B in that year, at least in next year, you have to file the 3B by 30th of September. If you don't file the 3B by 30th September, whatever the ITC which I have taken, no, I have to reverse it. And later, whenever you pay the amount by filing 3B, no, then I can re-avail the ITC. So this is about TRT. One more T is whatever I have paid, you have to pay to the government. If you don't pay to the government, then I will not get ITC. Next one, last R is about 3B. Section number 39 में I have to file my 3B to avail ITC. Otherwise, government will not come to my home and they will not give me the ITC. With that, there is some two extra points. AA, the details of the invoice or debit note referred to in clause A has been furnished by the supplier in statement of the outwards. See, only then that will reflect in my 2B. No, if it don't reflect in my 2B, then I cannot take ITC. So that means supplier has to file his GSTR1, only then it will appear in my 2B, otherwise I cannot take ITC. That is given in AA. And BA says that details of the input tax credit in respect of the said supply should be communicated. So the same thing I explained in AA itself. He has to file in GSTR1 and that has to appear in my 2B. It has to appear in my 2B, only then I can take the ITC, otherwise I cannot take ITC. This is given in section number 16. With that, there are some provisos. Remember the provisos, sir. If the goods are for one invoice, if the goods are coming in lots, whenever I receive the last lot, no, that date will be the on that time I can take ITC, otherwise I cannot take ITC. This is first proviso. Proviso number 2, remember 180 days ka rule. That means if I have purchased some goods, then I have to pay him within 180 days from the date of invoice. From the date of invoice, I have to pay him within 180 days. Otherwise, after 180 days, within next, whenever I file next return in 3B, no, I have to return the money. Why? Because government is protecting the supplier. Supplier, time of supply has happened, he has to pay it to the government. He paid to the government, but I did not pay it to that person. Whatever GST I pay to the supplier, no, the supplier will pay that amount to the government. No, if I don't pay, still he had to pay it as per the time of supply. So it was government who made him to pay it to the government, pay that amount by him to the government, so that I am liable to pay that amount to that person. Now the government says if you don't pay within 180 days from the date of invoice, then whatever the ITC you have availed from that sale, no, that proportionate amount which you have not paid, on that you have to reverse the ITC. In question bank, you have seen one question. Provided also that recipient shall be entitled to avail the credit of input tax on payment. See, within 180 days you have to pay. If you don't pay within next return May, you have to reverse the ITC, proportionate ITC you have to reverse. What if you pay it after that? After 180 days, you will pay it again, then you can take ITC again. So this is about one of the provisos, section number 16, subsection 2. Now later, section number 16, subsection 3 is about where the registered person has claimed depreciation. Remember, either depreciation on capital goods. Example, you have purchased one machinery on which you have paid GST. Either you have to go for depreciation on that ITC or GST amount. You can add that GST amount to the value of the goods, machinery, and you can capitalize that. If you capitalize, you cannot take ITC. If you don't capitalize, that means you are not taking depreciation, then you can take ITC. Section number 16, subsection 3 hua. Section number 16, subsection 4 says that what is the last day to take the ITC? ITC, see, you lost one invoice, you couldn't take ITC now. Okay, after some time you received the invoice, now you can take ITC, no? That means even then there is one limit for taking the ITC. What is the last day to take the ITC? 30th of November following the year of invoice. Year of invoice after that 30th of November or actual date of filing annual return, whichever is earlier. By then you have to take the ITC, otherwise you cannot take ITC here. So as per section number 41, availment of input tax credit, no. So if you are availing the input tax credit, and you have not paid, see, every registered person shall subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed be entitled to avail the eligible ITC or as self-assessed in his return, and the amount shall be credited to his electronic credit ledger. But the credit of input tax availed by the registered person under subsection 1 in respect of such supplies of the goods or service or both, the tax payable whereon has not been paid by the supplier. What if the supplier will not pay it to the government? I paid it to the supplier, but supplier is not paying it to the government, sir. In that case, the shall be reversed. So whatever the ITC I have taken, no, that I have to reverse it with the interest which is applicable thereon, which is given in rule number 37A. It is actually given in rule number 37A. We will discuss when we are going for rule number 37A, provided that where the said supplier makes the payment of the payable. So any amount which is payable by him, no, if he pays whatever I paid to the supplier pays it to the government, then I can re-avail the ITC. So but interest which is paid, no, that is gone, that I cannot re-avail it. So rule number 36. As per rule number 36, what are the documentary evidences which can be considered as tax invoice for taking the ITC? It can be invoice issued by my supplier, I can take the ITC, and any self invoice. Remember section number 31 subsection 3 clause F. What is section number 31? Invoice. Subsection 3 conditions. Clause F, RCB versus RRSP. S for self invoice. So if in case of reverse charge mechanism, if I purchase anything under RCM, then in case of self invoice, I will give the self invoice. Now I can take the ITC here. Next one, sir. So the debit note, I can take the ITC on the basis of debit note, and bill of entry. So in case of importation also, I will pay the GST. On that case, if I have bill of entry, I can take the ITC. Input service distributor, usually head office, they will distribute this input to us, to the branch. Now branch can, on the basis of input service distributor ka invoice, can take the ITC. These are the documentary evidences. And so rule number 36(2) says that, so where the registered that documents, no, it will contain all the applicable particulars as may be specified. What if all the contents are not there? At least what are the contents should be there? Amount of tax charge, description of the goods or services, total value of the supply of the goods, services, or both, GST of the supplier and recipient, and the place of supply in case of interstate supply. So all these place of supply should also be there. So at least these important the particulars that should be there. Next one, in case no input tax credit, no tax credit shall be availed by a registered person in respect of the tax which has not been paid in pursuance of any order where any demand. See, I'll get one demand order. That means I have not paid the GST, but the government is sending me one demand order. So later I will pay the GST with penalty. On that I cannot take ITC. It is blocked in section number 17 subsection 5 also. Next one, point number 4 says that no input tax credit shall be availed by the registered person in respect of the invoices or debit note or details of which are required to be furnished under subsection 1 of section number 37 unless. So we cannot take the ITC unless the details of the invoices or debit notes have been furnished by the supplier. Very simple one. If it is furnished by the supplier in his GSTR1, then only I can take ITC. Otherwise, I am not liable to take, or it is not possible for me to take the ITC. The details of input tax credit in respect of such invoices are note which are reflected in my 2B. So he has to put in GSTR1 and that has to reflect in my 2B. Only then I can go for ITC. Otherwise I cannot take ITC. If you remember rule number 37 and rule number 37A. What is rule number 37? In case of proviso, remember section number 16 ke liye there was one proviso. That proviso says that within 180 days I have to pay it to the supplier. Otherwise whatever ITC I have taken, no, that I have to reverse. So that is given in rule number 37. Reversal of ITC in respect of non-payment of the consideration. So in case of supply of goods, inward supply of goods or services or both, if I don't pay the amount, the supplier on the other than the taxable under reverse charge. If it is reverse charge, I don't have to pay him, I will pay directly to the government. In that case, that is fine. I can take the ITC because I will pay and I will take the ITC. If I fail to pay that amount within 180 days from the date of invoice, if I fail to pay the amount within 180 days from the date of payment, from the date of invoice, then I have to see if the supplier supply whether wholly or partly along with the tax payable thereon within the time limit specified, which is 180 days. Then if I don't pay, no, then I have to pay the amount, reverse the amount in the next 3B. Immediately after 180 days, whatever the 3B is there, no, in that I have to reverse that amount to the government. And so provided that value of the supply is made without consideration. Remember, without consideration as per section numbers 7 subsection 1 clause C schedule 1. Schedule 1 items are without consideration. In that case, within 180 is what to pay? What is there to pay? Correct? No, it is not required to pay at all. For that purpose, it is not, in that case, this provision is not applicable. And one more is section number 15 subsection 2 clause B. Remember topics TO. O means obligation of the supplier met by the recipient. That already met, sir. That is already paid. In that case, again, the GST is or the consideration is not required to be paid. In this 180 days ka rule is not applicable. Next one, sir, in case of rule number 37 sub rule 2, where the registered person subsequently makes the payment after 180 days, if he makes the payment, then he can take the ITC. Sir, subsequently after 180 days he makes the payment. Now the time limit which is given in section number 16 subsection 4, no, what is section number 16 subsection 4 time limit to take the ITC? If that is already expired, sir, as per section number 16 subsection 4. Now see, remember, in this specific case you did not pay within 180 days and ITC you have reversed it. After 180 days you pay it. Now you can avail the ITC. No, what if that invoice say after 180 days that date specified in section number 16 subsection 4 is already done? Can I take ITC, sir? Yes, definitely you can take ITC. That section number 16 subsection 4 shall not be applicable. Don't take sir, November and this 30th of November or actual filing the annual return, whichever is earlier, sir, that is also already done. No, sir, still that is fine. You can take the ITC that is given here. And rule number 37A says that last rule in section number 16, last rule number 37A says that reversal of input tax credit in case of non-payment of tax by supplier. So I paid the amount to the supplier, supplier did not pay to the government. Now in that case rule number 37A is applicable. See, I pay it to the supplier, supplier did file GSTR1. The moment he files GSTR1, I will get the ITC in my 2B. So I will get the ITC in my 2B. That 2B ITC, no, I have availed it. Now I have to keep checking that whether he has filed 3B or not. So he has to file the 3B from the date of that invoice. The invoice related to 1 year, no. Next year by 30th of September he has to, see, by 30th of September he has to file 3B. What if he fails to file 3B, sir? In that case, by 30th November, any 3B after 30th September, I will file 2 3Bs. 30th September ke baad, October 20th, I will file 1 3B. By October 20th, I will file 1 3B. By November 20th, I will file 1 more 3B. No, in these 2 3Bs, I have to, any 1 3B, I have to reverse the ITC which I have availed. So if I don't pay that, then the interest is also liable on me. So that is given in this point. And lastly, provided further that where the said supplier subsequently furnishes the return in form 3B for the said tax period, the said registered person may re-avail that. That means the tax period, after the tax period, if he pays to the person, no, then I can re-avail that. So that is given in rule number 37A. This is about section number 16, people. Section number 17 we will do it in the next video. Part B mein we will cover section number 17. Section number 18 if possible part B mein, otherwise part C. So there we will cover it. This is about section number 16. Basically section number 16 subsection 1, registered person can take avail ITC provided if he is using that goods or services for his business purpose. That is section number 16 subsection 1. Section number 16 subsection 2, conditions TR. One is section number 16 subsection 2 says that tax invoice should be there, only then you can take ITC. R, the receipt of the goods, you have to receive the goods, only then you can take ITC. Plus the supplier has to file GSTR1. First supplier has to file GSTR1. In that he should have mentioned your supply, only then you will get it will get reflected in your 2A. And the third one, the third important point is that T, tax should be paid. That person, no, the person to whom I have paid the tax, no, he should have paid it to the government. Otherwise rule number 37A ke hisab se I have to reverse it. If he has not filed the return by 30th of September, I have to reverse that amount. And whenever he pays that amount, no, 3B, whenever he files the 3B and pays that amount, then I can re-avail the ITC. And number 4, that is TR. I have to file my return 3B to avail the ITC. And there were 2 provisos were there, and one important explanation was that. Explanation was like, in bill to ship to model, if I have ordered for the goods and the goods are sent to some other person on my behalf, it is sent to other person, still it will be considered as I have received the goods or services. And proviso number 1 is that if for one invoice, if the goods are given in lots, then on receipt of last lot, it will be considered as I have received the goods and ITC can be availed. And proviso number 2 is that within 180 days, I have to pay to the supplier, otherwise I have to after 180th day, very next return may I have to reverse the ITC with the interest, and I can re-avail the ITC given in rule number 37. Rule number 37. उसके बाद we discussed about rule number 36. Rule number 36 में what are the documentary evidences which will be considered? Debit note, invoices, ISD, self invoice and bill of entry. These are the 5 items which I can consider it as my tax invoice to get the to get the ITC. And one more is section number 16 subsection 3 says that if you take the depreciation, then don't take the ITC. If you go for ITC, then don't take the depreciation. So this is given in section number 16 subsection 3. Section number 16 subsection 4 says that if you are taking the ITC, you have to take the ITC within 30th of November following the year in which to which the invoice pertains. If the invoice pertains to this year, then following that year by 30th of November or actual return, filing of the annual return, whichever is earlier, no, by then you have to show it. This is given in section number 16 subsection 4. So rule number 36, rule number 37, rule number 37A that we have finished here. We will discuss about some other topics in next revision video. Thank you so much guys for your patient listening. Love you all, miss you. Hail GST. Bye bye.